Hello, my friends. Today, the situation in the most intense directions is deteriorating very quickly. The Russians are throwing in the maximum number of reserves for the offensive and, as a result, continue to advance. Yesterday, it was reported that Orban discussed the possible end of the war with Putin. Zelensky, of course, expressed dissatisfaction regarding this, after which Orban wrote last night that they did everything they could to stop the fighting, but Zelensky refused. At the end of the Hungarian European Union presidency, we made new efforts for peace. We proposed a Christmas ceasefire and a large-scale prisoner exchange. It said that President Zelensky clearly rejected and ruled this out today. We did what we could. As we understand, Orban's call to Putin wasn't just for show. Earlier, Orban met with Trump, and only after that did he call Putin. Zelensky also gave yet another interview and said that territories cannot be surrendered to stop the war.
We cannot legally recognize our territories occupied by Russia as Russian. We cannot do this according to the constitution of Ukraine, according to the law, and internally as a society. This would divide Ukraine, the Ukrainian people. The strongest weapon we had at the time of the full-scale invasion was our unity as a society. And I believe that this remains our strongest weapon, our people and their unity. So, we cannot play with things that might split our society. If we had a lot of strength, equipment, and everything we asked for from our partners, we could press harder across multiple fronts. If we don't have enough of this, then, of course, some issues can be resolved diplomatically, and that's the right approach. But to legally recognize the occupied territories as Russian, we will not do this. Many people lived there before. They lost their homes. Some gave their lives. Some defended the land. Many people are in captivity, tens of thousands of people, tens of thousands of children who were forcibly deported. Thousands of people are prisoners, both military and civilians. They destroyed so much. How can we recognize that land as theirs? To acknowledge everything that happened and call it Russian means forgiving them for this. If you legally recognize these temporarily occupied territories as Russian, it means we forgave them. It means the world calmed down and gave them an opportunity to continue. Again, this sets a very bad example for future risks in other parts of the world. So, legally, this is impossible, but diplomatically, we need to achieve our goals. And our goals are lasting peace, a safe peace, and a faster peace for Ukraine.
But if we look at the situation realistically, today it's necessary to stop the war. So they will aim to halt it along the front line, even if those territories are not recognized as Russian. Everyone understands that Zelensky will soon leave his position as president. At some point, Putin will also leave, and all these issues will be resolved by completely different people. There are no guarantees that anyone will seriously address these matters diplomatically or pressure Russia to return those territories. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts about this in the comments. Meanwhile, the Pentagon spokesperson stated that the Russians might strike Ukraine with Oreshnik in the coming days. In the coming days, Oreshnik might strike Ukraine with a missile again, said the Pentagon spokesperson. According to US intelligence, the attack could occur in the coming days. Some are already rushing to name specific dates, December 12, 13, or between the 16th and 21st from 6 to 10 p.m., based on flight restrictions in the launch zone. However, we want to emphasize that no one knows the exact date or time, but the threat is indeed heightened. Now let's move on to the situation at the front, starting with the Pokrovsk direction. Here the Russians have already approached Pokrovsk closely. As we already know, more than a month ago, they similarly get very close to Myrnohrad. Now there are documented attempts to break into these settlements. The Ukrainian armed forces are trying to repel these attacks. How long they will be able to hold the defense of these cities remains a big question. As of today, it's clear that the Russians are attempting frontal assaults without trying to bypass or encircle the cities. This is because they understand they have very little time left before negotiations begin. So far, they haven't managed to secure positions on the outskirts overnight, but the attacks continue. They are also, of course, trying to expand their controlled territory to encircle the city. They are storming the village of Pishane. Oh, let me. One moment. Sorry, sorry, sorry. So, they're storming, yes, the village of Pishane and breaking through towards. So here, Novolenivka. They have also made gains, and over the past day, they managed to advance significantly, worsening the situation here. Similarly, they assault on the villages of Zelene, then Dachinska and Lysivka to get as close as possible to the city. Although the situation is growing more difficult with each passing day. In the Myrnohrad area, the Russians are storming the villages of Promy and Myrolubivka. Here, however, the situation remains unchanged for now. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians are advancing actively and have already broken through the road and even crossed a water obstacle. They are now assaulting Oleksiivka, Konstantinopol, Andriivka, and the village of Ulakle. We will need to wait and see if the Russians manage to secure their positions there. If they succeed, it will be a catastrophe because a very large Ukrainian armed forces grouping near Kurakhove will find itself in an even more difficult position. At the same time, the Russians continue to assault Dachne from two directions, and all other settlements in the area are under daily attacks as well. Russian military correspondents reported yesterday evening that the Ukrainian armed forces might have retreated from the pocket near Kurakhove, but we are still waiting for confirmation. In the area of Velyka Novosilka, the Russians are storming the outskirts of the town and are also pushing toward Vremivka. This indicates that they are already trying to encircle the city with a smaller ring. Battles are also ongoing near Blagodatne, and the Russians are advancing through the fields from Novodaryevka. So far, there have been no new changes over the past day, but the fighting is being recorded farther away from the main front line, which shows that the situation is worsening. In the Kherson direction, the Russians continue to push onto the islands and shell the right bank of the Dnipro river. However, they haven't achieved any success so far, and the front line remains unchanged. Moving to the Toretsk direction, Russian activity hasn't decreased here either. Assaults on Sherbinivka are ongoing and fighting continues in Toretsk. In recent days, the Russians have made some advances, but as of today, the situation remains unchanged. In the Chasiv Yar direction, fighting continues near Grigorievka, and Russian forces are assaulting Chasiv Yar and Stupochki, attempting to break through toward Bila and Deliivka. The situation remains extremely difficult as Russian activity has intensified again. However, there have been no significant changes over the past day as the Ukrainian forces continue to repel all attacks. In the Siversk direction, the Russians are attempting to advance near Vasiukivka, but haven't achieved any success. Overall, there is no major activity here, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Lyman direction, Russian forces continue the assaults on Terny, Yampilivka, and Zarychne. However, as before, they have achieved no success and the front line remains stable. In the Borova direction, battles are ongoing for Zagryzovo, Lozova, Zeleny and Kopanki. Further south, assaults continue on Chernyshina and Druzhilubivka, Grekivka, and from the village of Makiyivka, with Russian troops attempting to advance across the fields. Despite significant successes by Russian forces in this area recently, the front line has remained unchanged for the past several weeks, which is undoubtedly reassuring. In the Kupiansk direction, attacks have resumed near Petropavlivka, Glushkivka, and Kolesnikivka. However, Russian forces are not assaulting Kupiansk itself, and over the past day, the front line remains unchanged. In the Kharkiv direction, no new attacks have been recorded, and all previous Russian attempts were unsuccessful. Therefore, the front line here remains stable. Similarly, in the Vovchansk area, no new assaults have been reported, although Russian forces are gathering additional reserves for future offensives. But over the last 24 hours, there have been no new changes to the front line. In the Kursk direction, the situation is worsening significantly. Russian forces continue their counteroffensive with reports of ongoing battles near the villages of Kremanne, Pogrebki, Novoivanivka, and Guyevo. Additionally, there are attempts to advance near the Ukrainian border. While no new changes to the front line have been observed over the past day, the fighting continues. And it's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.